DuckTales Season 3 has had an erratic release history to say the least, but we have at least 6 more episodes coming this year and some brief descriptions of each of them, so let's break them down and figure out what's going to happen next as the family tries to take on FOWL. This Monday, October 26th, we get the new episode Escape from the Impossiben. The previous episode, Let's Get Dangerous, had Bradford expose himself as a member of FOWL, and since he is one of the board directors for Scrooge's businesses, that means they've been pretty heavily infiltrated at this point. The episode focuses on Scrooge securing his money bin and having Della and Louie work together testing its security limits, probably trying to break in and see if the security system can stop them. The others, meanwhile, get special training from Miss Beakly and Webby. It seems to me that this episode will be largely about upping the stakes and preparing the kids for what seems to be their most serious storyline yet. Previous seasons had overarching plots, but this is the first time we will have a villain be in the background for an extended period of time that the characters are actually aware of, with the aliens invading only in the last 2 episodes of Season 2, and the characters being entirely unaware of Magica's infiltration through Lena in Season 1. November 2nd, we get The Split Sword of Swanstantine, which features the story about the triplets and Webby splitting up to find missing pieces of a mystical sword. Unfortunately for them, FOWL is after it as well, with Steelbeak and Rockerduck teaming up to get it first. Like with Black Heron, I imagine that Steelbeak will butt heads a lot with Rockerduck, and their inability to work together will ultimately be their undoing. Meanwhile, the kids will succeed not just because of the training they received in the previous episode, but because they used to learn that training together in this episode. On November 9th, we get the episode New Gods on the Block. This episode will have a bigger focus on Storkules and his background, as the kids audition to replace Zeus amongst the Greek gods. This is a bit of a random adventure for the kids, and there is no mention of FOWL in this episode. Instead, we get the return of Daisy Duck, who is finally going on a date with Donald, but Storkules will apparently be stealing her attention throughout the episode, or at least trying to. I imagine this episode will end with Daisy appropriately enchanted by Donald, and he learns to pay no mind to chads like Storkules. On November 16th, the first adventure will air. The description for this episode is a bit odd, saying that Scrooge is forced to babysit a young Della and Donald, and ends up taking them on their first adventure to find a lost artifact. This seems to imply that it will be a flashback episode, as even if Donna and Della were de-aged, like with the Fountain of Youth from the Foreverglades, they have obviously been on tons of adventures before. This will likely be an origin story for how they got involved with Scrooge's life and his adventures to begin with, something I talked about wanting to see in earlier videos on this channel. What makes this episode weird is that the description says Bradford is taking on this mission personally, which implies that he is already working to stop Scrooge decades before he and FOWL decided that Scrooge had gone too far. Perhaps this will be like Beakly's origin story, and we will actually see Scrooge recounting his adventures with Della and Donald as they try to find the artifact again in the present as adults, and that is why Bradford is following them. Or perhaps the episode will be done entirely in flashbacks, and we'll also be getting an origin story for Bradford in this episode. We've got 2 more episodes to break down for you, but before we get into them, I want to remind you all about our Patreon page. There we have exclusive content, like our weekly breakdowns of new DuckTales episodes, as well as 2-week early access to our Poorly Explained series. Now, DuckTales focuses mostly on its main character, Webby, who works with her best friend Lena to defeat her Aunt Magica. They are aided by the power of friendship, which allows Lena to turn into a living toothpaste commercial. It's only $1 for early access, and for $10, you get to decide which cartoon we explain next. I'll pin a link in the comments down below, go check it out. On November 23rd, we will get an episode called The Fight for Castle Mcduck, which should see us returning to Scrooge's ancestral home and perhaps bringing in his parents again. While we don't know the reason for Scrooge's visit this time, he will apparently be seeing his sister, Matilda Duck, who had a falling out with Scrooge some time ago. This sister is not Della and Donald's mother, as in the first episode it is explained that their mother is named Hortense Duck, so it is unlikely that the reason for this feud involves Scrooge taking Della and Donald on ventures. Phantom Blot also returns with the intent of stealing an artifact from the castle, and in the process destroying it once again. While there is no mention of Scrooge's grandfather in the synopsis, I think it's safe to assume that we will get some more information or that this episode will foreshadow an upcoming appearance of his. All the way back in Season 1, Episode 1, he is mentioned on Webby's board about Scrooge McDuck with the question friend or fowl underneath him, implying some connection to the villains of this season. We also have reason to believe he's alive and not one of the many ghosts haunting Castle Mcduck, as he doesn't appear with any of the other ghosts that appear to protect the children. Finally, on November 30th, we get How Santa Stole Christmas. This will be the second holiday special this year, with the first one being the Halloween special just 1 month ago. In the previous Christmas special, Scrooge had made it clear that he absolutely despises Santa Claus for reasons that aren't entirely explained, though some people have theorized it is because Santa Claus is so generous and hands out presents for free. Scrooge does fund some charities, but even then he tries to talk down how much he is donating. This episode will feature Santa and Scrooge teaming up to save Christmas, and Webby will apparently discover the real reason that Scrooge and Santa have a rivalry, which seems to go both ways instead of just Scrooge being the hater. I think it would be funny if it just turns out that Scrooge never got presents growing up, and we find out something like his grandfather would always steal them as part of FOWL, and that is how Scrooge realizes his grandfather may be involved with the organization, by having Santa Claus revealed that he did deliver presents each year, but someone else had been stealing them. Early speculation from fans was that this might be the season finale. While it is 6 episodes short of their typical season's length, it would bring the show to a perfect 65 episodes total, which is the number needed for syndication of children's shows. The original title releases of the first adventure and Return to Castle Mcduck seemed finale-worthy, and perhaps they were a two-parter that had been split up since the Darkwing special got a full hour-long event very close to it. This, combined with the lower viewership and the current worldwide issues that could be affecting production, made people think that these could be the final episodes of the season, with the Christmas special coming after for the sake of timeliness. These synopses seem to contradict that, however, and there's no mention of other FOWL members or even press releases about more guest stars appearing in the episodes, so no reason to think that this will be the culmination of FOWL's plotlines. With that in mind, there should be 6 more episodes potentially coming out this season, and while they could race through them in December, perhaps even airing them one after the other over the course of a week, like they did with the final batch in Season 2, it's also possible that they will be the last we see of DuckTales this year, and that the remaining episodes will come out in early 2021. There's no answer to this yet, but if you like and subscribe to the channel, we'll be sure to update you as soon as we get the information. See you next time!